I was on mute.
Try again.
You guys hear us now? On Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And we counted you here while you couldn't hear us. All right. From the planning department, Marion Palma and Jessica Lahip and Velo Kalili. Please make sure your cell phones are turned off or on silent mode. If there's anyone here who would like to testify, please fill out the sign up form and give it to our staff. Zoom testifiers can send a message in the chat to the Zoom host indicating which item they wish to testify on. We ask that everyone please state your name before speaking. To all of us who are here attending in person, please remember to speak toward the owl. So as long as you're pointing forward, you're good to go. So everyone can hear. Okay. The committee will now consider approving the draft minutes. Actually, we were sent we're approving the April minutes. May I ask for a motion to approve the April 2024 meeting minutes as circulated? So moved. Is there a second?
I said.
Okay, it's been moved by Richard and seconded by I wanted to say Keeney. To approve the draft minutes from the April 2024 meeting. Is there any discussion? There's none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, no opposed, so motion carries. Let's see. Okay, public testimony on agenda items. The committee will now call for statements from the public as stated in the published agenda. Members of the public may provide public testimony regarding any agenda item now or at the time the agenda item is called to order. If there is anyone here who would like to testify now, please, please fill out the sign-up form on the front table and give it to our staff. Okay, was there anyone that wanted to testify now? Someone wanted to testify later on items, okay. All right, anyone on Zoom? No? Okay. So business item number one, Hāmākua presentation from Director Denise Mackey and Hāmākua on Hāmākua staffing needs, training and housing.
You want me to kind of?
Please.
This is weird, because like I should face that way, but people behind me, so.
That's why we're all over here.
Face, yeah. I'm putting myself here. so
Okay, perfect.
that makes sense. Okay, I'm Denise Mackey. I'm the administrator, actually regionally, a chief administrator for all of our long-term care and critical access hospitals in the East Lane region. So I oversee here in Hāmākua, just to give you an understanding of my scope and where my knowledge base, I guess, is coming from. I also oversee our critical access hospital in Ka'u down in Pahala. And for our region, I have oversight of our long-term care facility that's affiliated with Hilo Medical Center, our Yukio Kutsu Veterans Home, and I also have two small departments at Hilo Medical Center, the Rehab Department and the Social Services Case Management Department. I've been on the island since 2004. I moved here, lived in Mountain View for a long time. I've been up in Hāmākua since 2017. So just to give you some understanding of who I am and kind of where I come from. By trade, I'm an occupational therapist, so I actually have a clinical background, and I've been in administration for quite a while as well. So had kind of a pretty good conversation. I think a good half hour we were on the phone, Richard, the other day, and he was just advising me. He really wanted me to speak a little bit, and I think I was sort of more like, probably more of a talk story or conversation makes probably the most sense, but just to give you a little understanding of kind of where I guess this is coming from and what some of, I guess, all your concerns probably are. It's been a long time that we have struggled with staffing in our facility here. This is not just an effect of COVID, because I think we're rural and yet we're very close to North Hawaii Community Hospital. I think it's been challenging for us to continue to have qualified staff. That accounts for nursing and certified nurses aides and those folks. We're also really close to the big hotels in Hāmākua. And so we also struggle with dietary staff and housekeeping staff, and so it's not even just like one area, you know, it's kind of our whole facility has a challenge. We don't have a large labor pool like Hilo, and yet we have to run a facility with all these different parts. So I think there's probably many issues. One of the things I think kind of came to Richard's attention was, gosh, you have a lot of travel nurses there, and we're actually very blessed and very lucky that we can get travel nurses.
Where do you think in terms of your total nursing staff is travelers?
We have 12 travel nursing staff, and I don't know off the top
But
of
that
my head.
includes the PPs?
No, 12, there's 12 travel nursing staff, and there's 4 rehab staff, 3 PTs and 1 OT that are all travelers.
How many of those traveling nurses are RNs?
Oh gosh, you know, I didn't bring that with me. Not as many, actually. I believe we have 2 RNs in our ED. We have 4 RNs that primarily run our ED with a little bit of support from the other side. Our emergency department, 2 of the 4 are travelers. So 2 permanent, 2 travelers. It's been that way for a while. On the skilled nursing side, gosh, we only have 3 full-time LPNs, and I want to say about 7 of those nurses that we have, 6 or 7 are LPN travelers. And then RNs, we have more permanent staff, but we do run on the other side with whatever that remains, like, you know, 4 or so RN travelers, something like that.
Now you have housing next to the hospital.
So we do, and that's actually probably the only reason we're able to get and secure travelers is because we have that housing. So that's old housing that, you know, was built with the old hospital or around that time, from what I understand. I think it was originally to house like trainees or nurses or something, and we've converted it to apartments. We actually serve as a landlord on those properties, and so we've converted it to like little mini studio kind of rentals where they share bathroom and share. I have 4, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 units. So 9 travelers are housed with a very minimal rent. And it's one of the ways we can lure folks here, because as we know, cost of living is real high in Hawaii. And a lot of the travelers, part of their purpose, I think a lot of them, is to explore, have fun, and to, frankly, just being honest, right? And to get some experience, different places. And if they can earn money while doing that, that's a bonus for them. But if they have to come somewhere and lose money, they're not as apt to do that. And so I think having that housing that we have has been really helpful. Having travelers is necessary. We wouldn't be able to run the hospital without the travelers. And so we're lucky that we can get travelers, and yet everybody that works there permanently would prefer permanent staff, mostly because the kind of operation we run, it's really helpful if people know the folks that are there, and you know, there's a lot better continuity. And nurses' aides, we've also really struggled with. There's no such thing as a nurse's aide traveler, at least in our islands. We can't get those, and so we've been really creative there. We're about to start our 2nd cohort. We contracted with Island CPR, who's a certified CNA training vendor on our island, and they did a class of 11 in our facility here last July, so it's about a year ago. So interestingly, we did pay for that training, and we actually hired all of the staff while they trained. So we paid them to train, we paid them to be staff, we paid them until they got the certification. Because about a year before that, when we tried to run a class and just said, hey, anybody want to run, you know, we got 0 applicants. So we had to actually pay them while they trained, pay for their training. After we paid for the Hāmākua class, we ran a class in Hilo, and Good Jobs Hawaii had grants. And so Good Jobs Hawaii actually paid for that one, and Good Jobs Hawaii is paying for our class that we're running next month, which is actually a joint regional class. I'm running it in Hilo, but the folks in Hāmākua, we're gonna have around 5 students from Hāmākua. They're gonna Zoom in for classes and then just go there once a week. And I'm even actually doing that out in Pa'u, and I have 2 students in Pa'u because we're short everywhere. And so, but Good Jobs Hawaii said they're done with their funding after that. So we're on our own, but we're gonna have to keep doing it because we're never gonna have a labor pool otherwise there of CNAs. And then, like I said, our, you know, dietary staff and housekeeping can be very difficult to recruit because we compete with the hotels, which are not very far away, who want our staffing. And we've done some, never mind training, we offer a premium for staff up here for our LPNs and our CNAs. It's about $6 an hour more than I'm offering at my facilities in Hilo or Ka'u. We were hoping he will get some people to drive from Hilo up here, and we did not get one applicant from Hilo for $6 an hour. That's a pretty good, that's pay for your gas, that's a pretty good amount. And so I think we've tried to be really creative, and I think it's worked. And yet, do we dream of having fewer travelers? Would it be wonderful if every time we run these classes, we can keep all these folks? Because already the reason why we need to run another class is, of those 11, I think we hired 7, and I think only about 3.5 maybe remain. And by half, I mean they're half-time.
And they went elsewhere.
Well, I think some of them actually went on to nursing school, which is a great thing. And some of them, yeah, went elsewhere. You know, the community, everybody's hiring.
Let me ask you this, what have you tried to do with the co-center in terms of them setting up and nursing training?
So in the past, and this is long before COVID, I'd attended several meetings there trying to see what the plans were for as far as like their ultimate nursing education. I think that they were talking about at one time running an LPN program when they fully opened. They were talking one time about running pre-nursing classes. We tried to set up, the original plan with them was to use Island CPR to do CNA training there. This is before COVID, I think, and that's when we tried to market to the community, $600 for the class, you can be a trained CNA, and I think they ended up with 3 applicants and they couldn't run the class. They had successfully run a medical assistant program there. And so the thought was, hey, we can do the same model with CNA. The thing is, there's so much competition. Medical assistants work in doctor's offices, which are Monday through Friday jobs. If you start as a CNA in my facility, you're gonna work night shift. And you're probably gonna end up with overtime because people are gonna call in sick, and you're gonna, and you're gonna make about the same money. So what's the preferred job of most people, you know? And so there's so much competition that's made it real difficult. I think even, you know, home care or things like that offer different opportunities for people. And we train them as CNAs, and then they get an offer to do something fewer hours or better hours, or, you know.
Now, you know that the director of the co-center quit her job.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware of that.
And it seems to me that at this point in time, it might be a good opportunity for you to meet with the chancellor of the Hilo Center
Yeah,
and with the high school
yeah.
and get some sort of a program going.
Yeah, I think they're still waiting for their construction to finalize. I had spoken with Farrah Gomes, who is no longer completely involved with the co-center because it's now switched hands and went from UH to Hawaii Community College. But she's still involved. She's never gonna completely pull out of that, I don't think. And so this is going back about maybe 3 months ago. And we were talking about that very thing about having, you know, like, let's get the chancellor and the vice chancellor to, you know, you can meet with her and we can, you know. So I've started those conversations. I just think in their minds, they want to hire somebody. And it's sort of like, we want to have a director before we get involved with any programming. And I've had extensive conversations with Alan, who's pretty much running the place right now. And, you know, he's told me the same thing. I think until they get a director, there's not going to be a lot of movement.
David and I are meeting with the chancellor of the Hilo Community College. This month, isn't it, David? But, yeah, next week.
I haven't got any updates on where they're at with their construction. I can just see it from my facility, so I know they're getting close, but I don't, and last I talked to Alan, he had said, you know, there's been so many delays with construction and stuff. I mean, I think it's an option. I feel like we don't have enough labor pool. I feel like that's the biggest problem. It's not like I'm gonna say none of these things are gonna work, because I would hope that we'd get some people, and maybe that any little thing is gonna help. At the same time, I think it's a lack of people here, and more jobs in the driving area than we have people in this small community, and the competition. You have North Hawaii Community Hospital, which I was telling you, you know, it's an acute hospital, and I hate to say it, you know, it's the dream of most nurses. They want to work in acute care, and I don't know why. Hey, I don't know, you know, that wasn't my dream when I became an OT, but that's people's dream. It's like rehab therapists wanting to be outpatient. Everybody has this sort of like the golden place to work. And during COVID, one of the things that did happen to us is the acute hospitals became far more desperate for labor, frankly. They did not have nurses, they were losing nurses, we were struggling to get travelers. And they started hiring pretty much any nurse that applied, and prior to that, they were extremely selective. And so we were finding that there were more nurses out that couldn't get work in acute, and they wanted to work for us, and hey, we can train them, and now we're losing people to our sister hospital at Hilo. All the time. I mean, from here, if we have hired a few nurses over the years who lived in Hilo, and they kind of got their foot in the door with us and worked with us for a year or two, and then they're
Yeah,
working in Hilo.
they got drive 50 minutes.
Of course, that we don't expect those folks are probably gonna stay, but that's part of the problem, I think, is the labor pool. We've hired a couple of new grad nurses. You were asking me too about a program like that. So Hilo Medical Center runs a nurse residency program, which is like a nurse training program, and for the last at least 3 years, we've tried to encourage anybody that lives like maybe Hāmākua. We can offer the same training program in Hāmākua. We're gonna model it after Hilo. You can go to Hilo for some of your, like the trainings. You'll have a preceptor up here. I think each year we had about 3 or 4 applicants that we interviewed, and they went elsewhere. They were not even offered jobs in Hilo. And one of them went to Honolulu, one of them, they wanted to work in acute. So it's one of these, it's this barrier that we have, as part of it, but it's not like we weren't, we've tried to offer that. And in fact, I was telling you too, so we have an RN graduate, she just finished her schooling. Her mom was a longtime housekeeper who just retired from my building. They live in the community. And her mom is telling her, do your training in Hāmākua. You're going to be there. Oh, wow, that was scary. Wow, that's true.
You guys all right?
Wow, yeah, really. That looked dangerous.
Sorry. What kind of communication should you have with the high school?
Yeah, well, so anyway, her mom was asking her to.
I need to interrupt for like 1 minute. I need to grab my equipment from here, because I'm gonna have a class.
Yep.
So, sorry. Reasons.
You pause this.
The door, right?
The top. Oh,
But for now,
Do you think that if somehow that we could promote housing, and when I say housing opportunities, finding some way for people who want to work at the hospital, but they don't have enough, high enough income to qualify for a loan, and they get a federal subsidy. Because if they were offered the opportunity for housing, it would seem to me that you could hang on to those people.
I mean,
Or at least
it's possible. I would never rule anything out. I mean, I think that housing here is expensive. I mean, this area is very pricey, and if people are gonna buy a home up here or rent, there's very few opportunities to rent, never mind the cost.
That's what,
But to try to rent here or buy if they were so inclined, it's a lot of people are priced out of the market up here, frankly.
well, what's happening right now, there are 2 subdivisions on Lakewood. One homeowner just bought that property. So that means that anybody who might want to live there should kind of meet the Hawaiian standard.
Right, of course. Yes, yeah.
And so I guess what I'm saying is we need to promote some, like there's plenty of real estate around here. We just have to, the county or the state needs to promote that so that our labor force comes from the community.
I mean, yeah, the community needs to grow. I mean, you see it in town. This is not just health. I mean, healthcare is a priority because of what healthcare does, but I mean, every business in town is struggling to find, employees. I mean, this is not just a healthcare issue, I mean, and it's not even just in town. I mean, gosh, I think since COVID, I don't think KTA has ever reopened, even in Hilo, I don't think they reopened at the same hours they were before, and many restaurants are only open daytime hours now because they don't have staff for nights, and so this is a huge problem. I feel like this is a huge problem, probably nationally, never even on here, but it's magnified in our little community because we're so small and we can only pull from so far away that people are gonna wanna, and you know, between Hilo and here, we have the gulches. That makes it challenging for people, I think, to want to. I mean, I've had some staff, I had long-term staff that lived in Hilo that drove here for years and years and years. But I don't think everybody wants to drive those gulches every day, you know, because there's potential, right? It could flood, it could, you know, and it could be dangerous, and, you know, so that whole side, you know, where the biggest labor force probably is the most difficult to navigate, you know, as far as drive, right?
Does anybody else have any
Do
questions?
you know if Hilo Community College in Hilo has any CNA education?
They don't. So as far as I know, there were only 2 CNA. So this is the other tricky thing. So hospitals, acute hospitals, North Hawaii Hilo Medical Center, they don't need to have certified nurses aides. This is people, most people think like a hospital is like, oh, they always have the best trained staff. Actually, the nursing home industry is regulated more highly than the nuclear industry, and I'm not making that up. And we're protecting our elders, maybe there's a reason for it, but I just want people to understand that. Hospitals can train their own. So Hilo Medical Center has been running a nurses aid training program like for a while now, and they keep cycling it. Every 2-3 months, they're just training their own. Because I'm a nursing home and I have a nursing home license, which is a piece of what I do. My ED is not a nursing home, but I have a nursing home licensed building. We have to have certified nurses aides in a nursing home. That's a federal regulation, not just a state regulation. And as a result, in our state, anybody that trains certified nurses aides has to have their training program registered with the state. So it's rigorous. It's not just, oh, here's my program. They come out, you have a site visit, they inspect. And so there was a program in Hilo. Actually, there are 2 programs in Hilo, I take that back. There was HITS and there was another program with a lengthy name and I can't remember it frankly. And then there was Island CPR. And I think the HITS program still runs. There's one other program that they've been on and off running all through COVID, and she more or less, I believe, said she's probably not running any more classes. I think Life Care Center Hilo kind of did the same thing we did, and they contracted with Island CPR and ran their own cohort. And I think that in doing so, unfortunately, then it drives some of these other small places out of business. And so, you know, Life Care had this really huge pool and the small entity, you know. The other thing that makes it hard for us, frankly, is being a state institution. Most of our labor force is union, and we have to follow all these union rules. And so what we can't do, which would be wonderful if we could, is we can't say, if we train you to be a CNA, you need to work here for a year. It's just not allowed. We can't make people work there. So basically, we can train them and then they can leave.
Wait a minute. Doctors, when they got out of med school, they agreed.
They're not union. This is our union force, this is our union labor.
But wait a minute. They agreed to work in an FQHC for a certain number of years, and their tuition was forgiven.
Their loan payment.
Well, why can't we have a similar program?
yeah.
For nursing?
There are opportunities for folks, and we told folks about that to get loan reimbursement. In fact, my business office manager and accountant, every year she fills out a form to have her loans forgiven. So there are there are opportunities for folks. I don't think that's a huge floor for people. I'm talking more CNAs too, frankly. I was talking more like when we hire CNAs or even nurses, they don't have to stay with us, but they would get those loans repaid if they went to work at Hilo Medical Center too. So it doesn't really help us, honestly. I mean, the whole island is a rural community, and so you know, but I hear what you're saying. I just want to, you know, so like Life Care Center made them sign a contract that says they're going to repay all of their training if they don't work there for a year. And I was just at a conference from the Western Region Critical Access Hospitals. We had it in Kona 2 weeks ago, and I did a CEO panel, And one of his other CEOs was like, oh, we hired respiratory therapy and we trained them. They came out of our kitchen and we made them sign a 5-year agreement. And I was like, oh my God, we can't even sign a 5-day agreement with our unions, and they're signing 5-year agreements with their. So there are some creative things I think that other people have done that make it more difficult for us. And our unions, you know, they don't allow us to do certain things. And so it does make it a little harder, I think, for us.
I think when a student goes to the Gila Community College, whether it's in Gila or
Not, I don't think it's super expensive, but it does add up. Yeah,
$65 a unit for some students.
it adds up. Oh, sure.
So we need to find some way
Mhm.
to train those people and the tuition is forgiven.
Oh, that, I mean, sure, if it's I mean, I have a feeling the process is convoluted to apply, I mean, to get those loans, I don't know for sure, but. I mean, if you had it, I know there's been, I mean, they've done it for now rural physicians, there has been some talk of some money for nurses as well. I know if you work in rural environments, you do have opportunities for loan forgiveness, whether they're that easy to fill out and, you know, fill out the forms is a whole nother question, you know? So, yeah, ease of loan repayment would be helpful. I think housing is an issue. I guess I wish there were like some like real solution, and I don't think there's like an easy solution to any of this. I feel like it's a really complex problem with lots of complexities.
And I think it's incumbent about the people who live in the community to get involved and say, look, we need worker bees.
Sure.
And there's no place, I mean, look, I can drive through Hāmākua after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's 4 or 5 vehicles parked in front of every house. They're multi-family households because they can't afford, they can't afford a house.
Sure.
Or there's no houses for them to quote afford.
Sure. Yeah.
It was negotiate with the unions. Place to negotiate with the other side.
Yeah, we could negotiate with the unions, I'm sure. That's actually not done at our level. I mean, that's done, you know, it's not done as an individual entity. Like that's done more as, you know, those are big, you know, big state unions. No, it's white government employees union because it was HGEA or UW. So, and, you know, I mean, we have to abide by those rules. It's just, and unions were in place to protect workers. I understand the whole history of unions, you know, and yeah, I think unfortunately for us, sometimes it makes it harder for us now when we're in some critical labor, you know, system to ensure that, you know, even some incentives we're not really allowed to offer. Like you'll hear things like a lot of what you're talking about, even like, you know, whether it's tuition reimbursement or we'll pay your tuition to do this. We can't just do that like as an entity because these are union workers and it's not part of, it's just not what, it's not a benefit.
It's up to the community college to admit those students tuition free. That's not on you, that's on the community college. California has 136 community colleges. And if you live in, at one point they charge tuition. But if you now live within the district that you're attending, it's free.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I do feel like some of this are societal problems that if we can fix some of those things, we would have some improvements. I mean, that's wonderful that California does that. Yeah.
But Denise, the one thing we have going for us here though, is we have a community college campus that's not doing anything. We have a hospital here that needs worker bees.
Yeah, it's true.
We have a medical
It's true.
clinic that needs worker
Yeah.
bees.
It's true.
I mean, it's an opportunity just waiting for
It's
to
true.
be taken advantage.
No, we're lucky that we have an arm of the community college here. And it makes lots more sense that it's an arm of the community college because of where it's located. So being part of UH, although it's, you know, I think maybe that's how it
So
got
that's
started.
a whole nother story.
Yeah, I'm happy that it makes sense to me. This is a community college area and they should get, folks that utilize the service should get cheaper tuition and not have to pay university rates, you know, for their education.
Well, it certainly seems like an opportunity, maybe this time, just for the fact that they're getting ready to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great time to bring things up.
Yeah, I don't know where they're at with their search for a leader. I hope they find somebody soon, because I think that's gonna be key for them to really do any active programming out here. I mean, I honestly, I'm not joking, I wanna say they have 3 employees right now in that building, maybe it's even 2.
Well, the
They
chancellor that we have is acting chancellor.
Yeah,
She's
the
not
whole- I
in
know,
the
the whole,
room.
I'm aware, yeah, the whole, I know a few people in the community college system and, yeah, and. Yeah, that, pretty much everybody's acting right now, it's tears all the way down, yeah. It makes it harder, it makes it harder.
It wasn't even easy to get a meeting, but. Richard.
Well, there you go, see, I should have had you set up my meeting, yeah, this guy's persistent, you got a good guy on your hands here, absolutely, absolutely. That's what it takes, that's what's gonna help, get things done, absolutely.
That's our job.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, you sent the thing from, Rep Nakashima too about the, licensure. And the idea of like automatic licensure from other states, I think the whole purpose behind that had to do with the pandemic emergency. And then, of course, now the Maui fires, travel nurses coming here and not being licensed, and us having to try to get them here, but they're not licensed, and then they can't work. And then, FEMA had provided some nurses pretty quickly, and luckily the pandemic emergency had allowed us to accept them, licenses were, activated quickly, but I think this is in an effort to avoid all of that, they're trying to do parity of license now so that, Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs in Honolulu is always very backlogged, and it takes quite a while to get your clinical license in the state of Hawaii. And so in order to avoid that delay of whether it's someone moving here or whether it's a traveler or we have some massive emergency that happens really fast, and rather than having to try to get legislation through, I think if this is already in place.
Are we accepting RNs from the Philippines?
Yeah, that's a whole nother issue, no. And that's, as far as I know, unless something's different with DCCA now. RNs in the Philippines, they don't actually do the same job that an RN does here, believe it or not. They have training. But the way the Philippines hospital system works, from what I understand, and I've talked to people about this over many, many years, they're much more dependent on a doctor to sort of like guide them in many, many ways. And the system is a socialized medicine, which is personally feel wonderful. That's my soapbox, but whatever. I'm not saying anything bad about it. It's actually good. But what that means is they convalesce people for a long time. So no one is like, you have to go home and you have to, and so I think the nursing care and their ability to deal with emergencies or understand sort of what to do with in the absence of a doctor is very different because the training is very different. And so we absolutely have nurses, many in my hospital, who trained in the Philippines, but they did further training here or further training on the mainland somewhere, and then they applied for their license. So it's not that we won't accept somebody who had schooling in the Philippines, but there's not an automatic, from what I understand, ability to get licensed here easily. And of course, they certainly have to take the nursing exam and, pass an exam and everything. I know we've had some questions about trying to recruit nurses from the Philippines, and that's been something we've kind of worked on as a region over the years, and oftentimes some of these barriers, once again, the idea of sponsoring green cards as a state institution becomes very convoluted and very difficult with the unions and all the regulations. And so it's a little bit tricky, but we actually have had a few family members who have, of some of our staff, one recently who started as a CNA, but had his nursing degree from the Philippines and did some further training, and we just hired him as what we call a new grad RN now. So it's not like we've not seen any of that. It's just.
Now, your ER doctor, that's a third-party vendor.
All of our doctors in my facility are a third-party vendor, and the ER docs in this entire island are all the same third-party vendor.
They belong to one corporation, right?
Hawaii Emergency Physicians Association, HEPA. And that's true. It's the same group that works at Hilo Medical Center, Ka'u, Hāmākua, North Hawaii, Kohala, and Kona. So every hospital on this island has Hawaii Emergency Physicians Association.
Now, how's that, how are they recruiting people?
With difficulty,
But they managed to do it, right?
with difficulty. I mean, they do, but with difficulty. I think they have a core group because they already have Hilo and Kona, and they have a pretty, frankly, most of 99% of the docs that work here work in Hilo. So it's basically their Hilo crew that works here. Their Hilo and Kona crew work in Ka'u. Kona works in Kohala, North Hawaii works in Kohala, a couple North Hawaii docs work here. So they leveraged, I think, the hospital side is actually their sister arm, and that's Mid Pacific Hospitalists. They are very much struggling to recruit, and they, I believe, are actually hiring some locums right now to cover me because I had some docs leaving. And so it's challenging all around. You know, I mean, physicians, I don't personally recruit them because I have a vendor do that, but thank goodness, because that would be a whole nother big headache at this point.
Well, Denise, thank you for coming,
Yeah, you're welcome.
and,
Anybody else have any questions? No?
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very
Thanks
much.
for having me, I appreciate it. Yeah. If I am available, yes, you can invite me, I'll let you know, I would love to. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we'll be moving on to business item number 2. Provide updates on any of these that have updates. CDP community action items 3 and 4. Committee member Robert Mishimoto, do you have any updates on that?
Mr. Chairman, let me go, can you hear me?
Yes.
Let me see if I can walk through. I have a PowerPoint. I love pictures, so let me do that and share screen with you first, okay?
I've done that. Thank you.
Okay, you got me?
Yes.
Okay. I took these item 3 and 4 from our action committee activity, and I decided to go out and recruit partners. And this is kind of what I gave them. Work with government as well as private fishing groups, as well as some community members. So let me give you a brief summary of where I'm going. So one of the biggest frustrations I have as someone who grew up along Hāmākua is it's always not my kuleana between government agencies, and more so Hāmākua because the land folks and the ocean folks really don't have a shared view. So this is why I kind of hopefully, but my effort is to bring county and state government, because county jurisdiction ends at the high tide mark and the state kind of goes up to the high tide mark and then up to 3 miles at sea. So this is my presentation. I'll make it short. I call it shared governance of aquatic kuleana. Okay, this is the guide. On the right, you see the development plan. The action guide is section 4.2. Community action number 3 is to develop a coastal resource management plan. And community action number 4 is to develop a hui of fishermen and interested people. So this is where I start my thinking. What happens Mauka does not stay Mauka. And this is a term that's shared by many islanders, but for some on the continent, this really does not apply to many of them because, you know, you don't have that connectivity. Muliwai is the estuary. I think is something called as a keystone. This is really is key. Estuaries are, if you're on the mainland, Chesapeake Bay, San Francisco Bay, if you are in Texas and those places, these are huge productive areas. But islands, estuaries are very small. Here's a picture of the Kohala coast. The estuary is red because this is where the nursery grounds are for babies. If you look at the green arrow going Mauka, these are, we have 7 native species that grow up in the ocean and then migrate back into the streams. So that's our native biota. And you see the one parallel is our coastal fisheries. You know, these are where people most focus on, just to show you that estuary is really the intersection point. And I think this is where I'd like to start the process. When I look at the plan, one recommendation is they want a community-based fishery management. It's a great idea, but there's a lot of challenges, but there's also pluses. The pluses are historical knowledge, and it's really, really quickly fading, I think. The focus on resource management can be positive, but can be negative too, because there are two cases. The state has one in Hyena, another one in Miloli, called community-based resource management. One of the challenges to that approach is that the data is qualitative, not quantitative. So you can't make rulemaking based on qualitative data. Secondly, what it also turns into a sociological nightmare, because people don't want others to come and fish in their neighborhood. And this is really, I think it's a case in point that's, I've heard stories on Hyena as well as in Miloli. But anyway, I'm telling you, it has value of historical knowledge. The other thing I'm looking at is ecosystem-based management, which really look at things from a very coast-wide basis. Yeah. And what I've heard from practitioners that says fish is a byproduct of a healthy habitat. Up to this point, fishery management has always been pushed upon islanders by outside environmental groups. It's always basically talk about overfishing, but I'm yet to see a challenge at anybody to show me that there's overfishing Hāmākua. That's maybe so in Maui and Hanauma Bay, and maybe down in Kona where you have the over usage by tourists. Hāmākua, I don't think there's any basis for overfishing. So I'd like to refocus, since this is a Hāmākua CDP activity. Yeah. Okay, let me see if I can back up a little bit. Anyway, there's three groups that I've approached, and there all seems to be activity. First is your group, the Action Committee. And also really a valuable partner is that Punk Committee, the group along the Onamea area that proposed purchase by the county to buy these two valuable parcels along the coast. But I always say this is a great value-added purchase, because sandwiching those two parcels is an estuary, never studied. It's a big estuary. And I guarantee you this is a place where there's a lot of movement of native species climbing back into the native stream habitat, or is a nursery habitat for a lot of coastal game fish species. I got commitment from State of Hawaii Aquatic Resources. East Hawaii member has joined our group, and also this group called from Coastal Zone Management, MACSAC, which I'm a member of. So I'm biased, but they also have bought into this approach. And there's a state group called HFAC. This is an active group that gets involved with legislative issues. This is called the Hawaii Fishermen's Alliance for Conservation and Tradition. I met with them and they're very supportive. Again, there's a group of responsible fishermen. And this other group that really surprised me is a group called Makahanaloa. This is a fishing group that lives along the Onamea coastline. And I've seen their website and they're very, very responsible what they do. So again, these are our clients, I think, that we need to work with. From an ecosystem perspective, you know, people that talk about fishery management in Hawaii talks about only about the adult phase. Yeah, they make closures with the idea that adults will grow up, and they call them big old fat fecund female. The idea that you keep them fat, they'll get pregnant and they'll spawn, and the babies will recruit. But that's not true. That's a very naive approach, you know. So I think you need to look at fishery management from a perspective of the life cycle. The early larval stage on the upper left-hand corner is very hard to do, but the late larval stages that you see on the right side is where you have settlement into juveniles. this is where I think the focus can be, because it's almost like this is almost like an insurance policy that will face issues with sea level rise, acidification, and those issues. Okay, so this is nature's way of recruitment of supporting the resource. So you need to do 3 estuaries. You look at the pelagic reef and the estuaries. Community-based fishery management by DAR is always focused on reef and adults. It's a naive thing that you'll close and it'll work, but there's no proof it works. I've seen nothing where it works. Estuary is where I think the focus should be. This is a meeting ground where the Y and the Chi meets, and this is where we all can meet. I think it's the same estuary. You have the waterbird people. Waterbirds is a really important part of the ecosystem. This is a diagram I lifted from a site. What maintains a sustainable fisheries. Let's look at the upper left-hand corner. Ecosystem held along Hāmākua coast, unknown to a lot of people, is heavily sedimented, even up to 100 feet deep. There are hardly any corals on Hāmākua coast. There's mostly giant boulders. I've known friends that have dove to that deep or deeper and see that the bottom is basically have a fine layer of silt. But one thing I need to point out to you that Hāmākua coast is a nursery habitat for the endangered hawksbill turtle. The juveniles live there. So, and they primarily feed on sponges. So I think the sponge diet really is a filtration. So you can basically equate smoking and human health with sponge livelihood and probably the loss of food for these juvenile turtles. So this is a system approach. On the climate perspective, a healthy estuary will basically be a resilience against sea level rise, changes in habitat, but this is really key. This is where you won't have forces fighting each other. This is a force where you can, I think, meet. Because, I don't think anyone will ever fight you on issues regarding nursery and babies. Habitat is important. I think this is something that we hope this group we can refocus. Because I don't see giant shrimp trawlers out here off our coast fishing for a shrimp on our coast. You just see maybe a diver or two and a guy with a pole from shore trying to throw his line at least 30 feet offshore, but that's about the extent of it. But again, like I learned that fish is a byproduct of a healthy habitat. By focusing on habitat first, I think it's achievable. I think one of the biggest threat we feel, and this is hopefully this effort can bring the county to the table. Sediment, every time you see a giant rain, if you Lake Hāmākua, look out in the ocean. There's always this brown streak out there. Where the hell does it come from? Setbacks on the building on cliffside. There is, I know, some progress, but is it really sufficient? What about the setbacks along stream edges where ag is pushed? But do ag people ever been taught that you don't raise your plants at the edge of the stream where you have runoffs? So we can equate and put those things together. You can see how Hāmākua can be a healthier environment. So here's my goals for action number 3 and 4. The Hawaiian perspective, Mauka, Mulewai, Makai, is something that we all believe in, but maybe this is a way we can practice this. I always feel that a native forest will add to a natural stream flow now. This is not diverted streams, but natural stream flow. And it turns into a Momona ocean. This thinking, I think, can get people onto this train. I think you focus on nursery habitat, degradation, and not overfishing. I think you get a lot more buy-ins. The group like the Makahanaloa fishing community, look at HVAC and all those people, they thought this was because they were unfairly treated as being the source of overfishing, which is not true.
Bobby, can I interrupt you for a minute?
Sure.
Do the people who live on the Hāmākua coast feel like the area is being overfished?
Nope.
So that's overfishing is not an issue.
Nope, not Hāmākua. But again, like fishery management, you cannot, one size does not fit all. You know, people always talk about coral reef. Coral reef, because it's where the beauty spot is. This is where the tourists love. This is where people love to talk about coral reefs. But find me a coral reef along Hāmākua coast and I'll give you $1. Yeah, it's a totally different habitat. So we need one size does not fit all. Okay. This is where I think we can get buy-in, because ultimately it not only talks about fishing is really about, if you think about fishing, it's not a recreation, but for subsistence. With that start, then you can look market and you become partners, not enemies. Okay. Here is where I think the focus can be. One, recognize estuary as a keystone. Again, to our council person, Heather, you know, she's a biologist, so I found out there's no such thing as a keystone habitat. There's a keystone species, but I just made that up, so don't challenge me on that one. Keystone is, think about keystone, you know, as if it falls apart, it falls apart, but I think this is where the key is. We organize a regional hui. I went to visit Bethany Morrison. We had a lovely conversation. Oscar is bought into this one. And so there's a lady that works for research and development who has money to do a watershed management plan for the Hilo watershed. But it encompasses estuary there too. So there are players. So how are we going to get these players to participate is something that is the next challenge.
Well, Bobby, if you're gonna organize a regional hui, who would be the participants?
I prefer to work with fishermen first,
Okay,
because you need to recognize the users. They're the ones that have the traditional ecological knowledge. Science can be partners, but science does not drive the boat. It's the hui that drives the boat. And just by chance, thanks to the punk community, I really kind of slid myself into the group and found out there's some treasures. There are people that have the Makahana Fish Association. So hopefully they can have buy-in also, you know, and I think it sits well with this being a community plan. And again, this is the view of Waikiapan. Again, I'd like to leave you the message that not by Kuleana is not an option. Thank you.
thank you. Thanks, Bobby.
Bobby, I have a comment, I guess. Mahakanaloa, down in the Pepekeo side seems like a very organized, very tight group, and that has energy to devote to a project such as what you're describing here. Up here, a little farther north in Hāmākua, my occasional visits with fisher people up here suggest to me that there's much less organized. In fact, almost I would believe there's actually no group that represents the fishermen up on this side. And so I'm just wondering, do you have any inroads into that community to represent more Northwest Hāmākua? Do you know?
No, I don't. But if you know any group that even show a figment of interest, I'd love to come give a presentation, because I can speak from all sides, I think, because I was the aquatic resources work for them. And
I'll try
you know,
to.
communities, like, you know, the community members is the ones who drive this, you know, and it's a challenging, Hāmākua is a very challenging coastline. Unless you're a boater or a guy that fishes your spot every year, the same spot, it's hard to go see. It's very difficult, you know. But if you see anyone, I'd love to go and introduce myself and say, hey, this is part of the plan that outlined in the Hāmākua plan. So this is how I think we can move forward. So what's your say? And what really heartens me is DAR, the state, has finally admitted, I hope, that their responsibility goes upstream, not only in the ocean, but also the county. I was really, again, Heather, the county really I kind of knocked on a few doors in research and development, and Bethany and that group, I was really impressed. So I told them, count me in, I'll volunteer for you and help you as much as I can, because most agencies are so bare boned, so I don't mind being part of that. So I think for me, it's selfish because that's my interest, it's all I know is about fishery management. So hopefully I can participate, but there's a chance I think that the county and state, again, I don't like to hear the word, it's not my Koliana. It's really not an option for us.
I have something I could chime in. I'm president of Hāmākua Agricultural Cooperative that owns some land, a little bit of along the coastline out here in Hāmākua. And we control a gate that's like one of the only ways to get down to it's all cliffs in the shoreline, but we do get fishermen like occasionally asking us to get in. And one of our farmers has like the best access spots. We always tell them to just call this guy, he can maybe meet you out here with a key and let you in. So we do get contact with a lot of these guys, but is there some place I could send them so that they could get more information? Like, I mean, I'm hearing that there's no hui right now, but how could we assemble some of these people?
I'll get you Bobby's number. I have Bobby's number, and so I think we can connect you.
Okay. Great, yeah, and then the fishing association that he mentioned, it originated in Hāmākua, but it's expanded. Broader on the coastline. I'm sure that they'd be willing to connect.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it'd be nice if there was like some way to kind of vet people, because we really want people to be able to use the coastline, but it's also like everyone has farms, expensive trucks and tractors down there, and there is obviously such like a theft problem that, we want to know people really are fishing, so it'd be really great.
you reminded me too, and Bobby, this is somebody you may want to connect with, is the Hui Mao folks. Here in Pauilo. They have a group of fishermen, they have partnership to have access through their gate, through their property.
Oh,
So they
okay.
probably have a whole movie of, because they keep a whole list and everything, and they have to sign up. But that might be another, Hui Mao, they're right by the post office in Pauilo, is there?
Oh,
Yeah,
nice, yeah.
yeah, so you might actually connect with them, because that's exactly what they've done, they own a bunch of land. 100 acres, Makaya Highway,
Yeah.
and that they have a whole program where they live.
Yeah. All right, thank
You
you.
know.
Yeah,
Bob.
we might.
Yes.
I have a question. What's the status of the coastline setback effort with the county? I know that they had the consultant team. I was just curious about that, and then also any of the riparian, because as you well know, Hāmākua is has probably the most gulches and streams, perennial streams, and so I guess the other question is sort of from the county side is the setbacks and buffers for those gulches and riparian areas that feed into the ocean and the estuary. So just kind of curious if you are aware of where things are at along those lines.
No, I don't know, but maybe Heather can help me with that one.
Or planning should.
So, the proposal to increase the setback from the shoreline is going through the process. The Kauai bill passed recently, and it was the first time that like a GIS layer was used to establish the setback in the shoreline. And so that's what we're trying to utilize, is to be able to use that GIS data layer as the foundation to establish the shoreline rather than the traditional survey mechanisms. And then one of the things that Kevin Sullivan, who I know Bobby,
Yep.
Would like to expand that to include some of the critical riparian habitat. So we're kind of working on how that might work legislatively. We're probably still another 3 to 6 months away, but it's in progress.
Good.
Heather, is that with the consultant team that was hired by planning? Or is
Yeah.
it,
They were part of the analysis, the code review and, made the proposed revision, some language revisions. And then there's a whole another side that has to do with the GIS and the mapping side.
It seems to me that at some point they ought to be providing some sort of report to the CDP.
That's a good idea. You should ask them to
I
come up
mean,
and do that.
come on,
It's really
it's-
super interesting what they're doing. So I encourage you to do that as a presentation that would be particularly relevant to this.
Who do we contact?
Probably Kevin, yeah.
Yeah, I just reached out to one of the fellow, one of the other planners in Long Range.
Did you email me?
Yeah.
Okay.
He likes to talk about his work, so I'm sure he'll be happy to come on.
For sure.
Okay. Well, that was very informative and makes me want to do something too, so. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Bobby. So next, YPO Wahipana, Brad, do you have anything on that tonight?
I don't, I wasn't able to make the last meeting, but maybe Heather, if Heather could, or I don't know if Mihalani is there or not.
Yeah, she wasn't able to make that meeting earlier, either. The main thing is we're meeting down in the valley. You got it on your calendar, Brad, July 7th.
Yes, I saw that.
He's meeting in the valley, but we're taking 3 different tacks right now, and I may have talked about this last time. One is to look at a permitting system for the roadway. So that before going down, folks would have to like watch a video about safety and the habitat and all of that stuff, and then they pay to get a permit to go down for the day. The thing is, we can do that legally, we just can't limit it to a certain number per day. But I think if we require it like a couple of weeks before you go down, we'll kind of limit the number by default. We need that state bill to pass, which I mentioned to you guys before, to give us the ability to limit the number of permits we can issue. Another thing that we're looking at is KS is potentially willing to give us some land down there to develop a parking lot, which is how they did it in Montana, is they permit the parking lot, and so there's a certain number of parking lots that people can go down, and we could reserve, a portion of the stalls for local community members only. That works there. We don't need any state law to be passed for that. And then the other thing that we're looking at is trying to remember what the third thing was. It has more to do with trying to keep people up top and having it be more of an experience from up there. So looking at other locations. We're kind of pursuing all at once. It's like the shotgun strategy, not knowing what we can get to stick, but we want to kind of share this with the local community down there, which is why we're meeting with their meeting in the valley the next time, so we can get some more of the feedback from the farmers and the real descendants of the area.
There's some control issue that for people to access the Hāmākua Falls.
It's state land.
Oh, that's a state.
Yeah, if it were state, I mean, it's a whole different, they can do all things, certain things we can't do. Which is why that bill would have given us that authority.
Is that a county?
The road is county road,
Oh.
yeah. Yeah. And we would love to give it to anyone who take it. That's,
The notion of permits that you were speaking of, are you talking about a daily? permit?
yeah, well, we would
Or-
probably have like different tiers, so we would probably have like. The folks that live down there, obviously, they're gonna have a residence permit, and then the folks that are maybe from our surfing community who don't always know when they're gonna wanna go down. Would have like a monthly permit or something like that, where if they can go anytime, they would just have to get that permit in advance, and then the third tier would then be for any visitor. They would have to get it some duration in advance. Again, the only reason we're proposing that is
we would have fewer of the people that are driving up in their rental vehicle that have no idea where they are and no idea what the hazard the road is, and, you know, they'll have some advance,
Are the staff that man the lookout over there, are they instructed to deter rental vehicles from going?
they're not, because they don't have any enforcement capabilities, they're education specialists, so they're really there to share information about the valley and talk with people. They have been under this emergency order, been required to check IDs and stuff, because you're not supposed to go down unless you're a county resident. So part of the permitting system would be that there would be some revenue generated, which we would hope would also pay for some additional staff for that area, but also the idea is to create a fund that folks in the valley could access for different projects down there, you know, that's why, and it has been successful because the revenue generated by that program, permitting program they have, goes back into their community to help them build their fish pond walls and, you know, improve the taro patches and build trails and stuff like that. So that's kind of the whole concept, is that revenue would support additional support staff at the top as well as activities.
Then we have a committee process to use the park up on Saturday, don't we?
To stay in the cabins, yeah, and so that's actually what we're gonna do is, you know, we have a permitting process for like the campgrounds, like Spencer Beach, we're gonna piggyback on that, so we're gonna use the same underlying software, but it will be.
People can apply for those permits online, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're gonna have them watch the video first, we're gonna go check the box, because I am not driving a rental vehicle that's prohibited from going down. Cause a lot of those guys, they get there, they don't know that they're not supposed to go down in a rental vehicle, or they have to have a 4-wheel drive. You know, so we're gonna make sure they know all that stuff before they even try. And the permit.
So when you say you're looking at other ways to get people to do activities at the top of the valley that are connected to it, does that include things like we had talked about, other access points that are looking over the valley or something?
Yeah, you know, unfortunately though, since we've talked, I did get a chance to touch base with some of the chaos people, and there's not a lot of support for that.
Yeah.
So I do have, I was gonna be to my updates later, but I do have an update for you, I think.
Okay.
I'll say that it's not with you. It is actually.
So David, you know, just a little bit of history. I know, you know, with the Rice property, you know, that was the first punk acquisition. Because of the, I guess, county charter, right, Heather, in terms of not allowing facilities on the punk acquisitions. That was kind of a challenge, because like way back, I don't know how many years back, I was working with the community and in the Parks Department, trying to see if we could actually, because I did get a consultant team to do pro bono design for a visitor culture center up top, which would be ideal, you know, to have a orientation point so that people can learn about YPO without going down, or in this case, you know, having a place where they can be, you know, learn about the permitting and all that kind of stuff too. So I'm hoping, since we not going to be able to do that until we get some sort of change in the county charter for the punk, or some sort of exception to that, which I would like to see. And if not, you know, I'm looking at other, because we're looking at, you know, just the whole approach to YPO. And I know KS has lands up there, but you know, just so that there is a proper gateway to YPO Valley.
So, you know, I did some looking into that, Brad, and you're right, the charter says you can't use PONC funds to develop on PONC properties, so you can't put. But you can't put things like parking lots, you can do bathrooms and like do a halau up there, and I think Kula Kalia guys are gonna do that. But I did do some legal digging on it, and the way the wording is in the charter is it's just that you can't use the prompt funds to build that infrastructure. If we had other resources to build that center,
Yeah.
I think that an interpretation of the charter that would allow it.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, for me, I think just getting a variety of different grants and donations from the, community partnerships, and I think there'd be lots of potential donors for something like that. And
Those site plans, you should share them with me.
well, we didn't really start, but I did get an architect, I did get an engineer, and that was several years back, and then we didn't really get anywhere with Parks Department because they didn't want to take it on, in terms of
A different interpretation of that.
yeah, so I hope that we can change that.
As long as it's outside money, it's possible to use the outside money.
That's the way that I read them.
Yeah, yeah.
Read it Specifically written, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That you mentioned, July 7th, is it open to non-YTO residents?
It's the steering committee and Whitefield Valley residents. and
Okay,
farmers.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to be residents, but if they've got that, now they're farming, so yeah, it's good for the. We'll do more broader. In the very future, they're more settled on what we're doing.
Yeah, and it's the YTO steering committee, what's the?
Yeah, there's a, Whitefield Valley Steering Committee that, has been going now for a little over 4 years. And, we're trying to plan. Yeah,
we need it.
yeah, we do.
Okay, next we have fire preparedness and public access. Did you have anything to report tonight on that, Tom?
Well, yes, I had, over the past several months, had an interest in the, what I thought was going to be the emergence of the Hāmākua fire preparedness plan, that was being prepared by the, the Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization. I believe that actually, Nani had presented to our group back, maybe the end of last year. And my recollection is that she had said that this Hāmākua management plan had been presented to the fire agencies and the county agencies that needed to review it. Now, I could be mistaken about that, but at any rate, I spoke to Nani again, and it seems that somehow or other, whatever was created reached a limbo status. I also, and that Elizabeth, who is Nani's partner as administration in WHMO, or HWMO, had actually written the plan, and I had believed that in fact it was a second iteration, that there had been a plan previously and that this was a revision. And I'm thinking that perhaps one of you may remember that conversation better than I do. But at any rate, Nani's comment at this point was that Elizabeth, and I certainly believe, has been extremely busy lately, and I got the impression that we probably should not hold our breath to get actually a Hāmākua wildfire management plan from them. I believe that the deputy police or fire chief had written a letter to our committee, and I thought that it was in the meeting packet from a month ago, but I searched the meeting packets for the last 4 months and was unable to find that letter. I'm actually very curious now to go back and look at it. But to see if the fire department might offer anything that it appears the HWMO is not going to be offering to us.
Well, Glenn, shouldn't, but I don't think the committee was. I can't remember the name of it. Never mind.
Oh, I think the letter from the chief, I think it was sent to me, I think I brought copies, passed them out.
Oh, that may be it. That's why it wasn't in the meeting packets. At any rate, I probably didn't have that. That's all. I'll look for it. But I guess the bottom line on that then is that I'm not sure we're going, I had imagined that HWMO was going to provide a nice outline of what, maybe even as detailed as what each area might want to do for for wildfire preparedness, but I think we're not going to get that from them. So what is the next step? Because this is such a critically important thing.
Where's civil defense in this?
Well, I'm sure they're a part of it. I'm not sure which one.
Well,
they are.
maybe we should prevail on that.
And that, of course, is an excellent idea.
Yeah.
I think what I'm intending to do, because I feel actually very committed, more to Hāmākua actually than Hāmākua as a whole, but I would like to perhaps use Hāmākua as a model that could in fact be extended to the other communities up and down the coast. A year ago, I spoke with, well, no, it was after the Lahaina fire, I spoke with the fire captain here in Hāmākua. And he said that, because I had asked if we would be able to, myself and he and whoever else had an interest, might be able to actually take a survey trip around the perimeter of Hāmākua to see where is the weak points, what are the areas that actually need to be addressed. And he said, well, you need to actually take up all this. He has no authority to say yes or no to that. You need to take this up with the police chief or with the fire chief.
I think it seems to me you need to take it up with civil defense.
Well, and civil defense, certainly fits into this picture.
Like civil, when we had those lava flows down in Puna,
Yeah.
civil defense got very involved.
Right, yeah. And so, at any rate, I certainly will be trying to make another approach to this. In other words, the HWMO has kind of defined their recommendations to the various communities as to be found in the Firewise Communities project. And I know that here in Hāmākua, the businessmen were in fact trying to find someone to coordinate the Firewise Communities program here in Hāmākua. I think that they may not have actually found someone to do that work. I'm more interested in protecting the perimeter. Firewise Communities is more focused on individuals and neighborhoods within the communities. But my interest is in, I suppose rose from the scenario of the Lahaina tragedy in that we need to also consider protecting the perimeter. And of course, that protection comes down to eliminating the fuels, which is primarily the guinea grass that's so prevalent. And so this is going to require a coordination with the ranchers, and how that coordination takes place is, that's where I think the emphasis needs to take place in Well, hopefully over the next month, I'll report back next month and let you know if there's any new developments.
So that's interesting. I was just gonna say, it seems like that was what we were sort of counting on there, but
Yeah, I'll reach out to Nami and see where the holdup is, because I recall as you do that she said it had been shared out with like our fire department and civil defense and all that, and they were waiting comments back, so if it's stuck somewhere in the county, I'll find out and see if I can get it unstuck, but I wanted to make sure you folks were aware of the new processes that Pico is anticipating putting in place. They sent something out recently. And one of the things that I think is important for this area in particular is they're gonna do mandatory shut-offs. They're gonna shut off the power when winds get to, I think, 45, which it actually kind of gets pretty frequently up here. So I think we wanna have a dialogue with them to make sure that we don't go too far to the point where we're having seniors that can't have their oxygen machines and people's food is rotting in their fridge because we have a windstorm coming through, right? So I would suggest maybe another meeting opportunity, David, is to bring in the ECO representative. Jennifer Zelko has been on before, but maybe to talk specifically about their fire mitigation planning, because I think it could have some potentially adverse effects if we don't dialogue with them about it early.
yeah, it sounds like they're finding that on their own, so.
Yeah, I mean, they had the consultants come in and advise them on practices, and so they're taking that on. And I will also say that our deputy fire chief is a wildfire expert. I think I mentioned him before. And he's gone out to all of the KS properties with them to talk mitigation. I think one of you mentioned, oh, they're doing all this clearing. Oh, what's that about? They're putting in a lot of those fuel breaks and stuff.
Yeah.
On the KS property. So, you know, yeah, some of the fences are roll, but with this stuff, it is really more fire. So I would suggest to get the follow up with. Now they're taking more of the lead on this particular preparedness.
Yeah, I think it's possible that HWMO might be in a sensitive position in the sense that, you know, if they present to the county, you know, such a vigorous plan, you know, for coming close to some ideals that they might have of protecting
I
communities.
don't think that's it. No,
Oh,
if you
good.
look at the other plans, they're less like directives, like county should extend it. I wouldn't see any reason why the county would be concerned. In fact, they're a wonderful partner to us, and so I don't think that that's.
Yeah, good.
But it's possible that it's sitting on somebody's desk somewhere and they've just been too busy. Not my desk, but you know, one of the pizza hands or
Yeah.
at civil defense or something, and they just haven't turned it around. So I'll talk
Very
to them.
much appreciate your help with that.
The map, this area wasn't in the Hiko shut off. It's Waimea, Kohala, it didn't have this area.
This is not the consumer plan I'm talking about. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
another one for this.
Cause yeah, they. But I wanna make sure that in the fire mitigation plan, it addresses the eucalyptus, which is very, very flammable. So guinea grass, when it's green, I'm a rancher, we rely on the guinea grass to feed our cattle,
Yeah.
our sheep, all of our animals eat
Yeah.
the guinea grass. When the guinea grass is green, it doesn't catch fire. When the guinea grass is brown, when it's been sprayed along the highway next to the eucalyptus, that is a recipe for disaster. We have fires up in Paulilo area almost every year. So just.
Or I also have a farm. If you, we just cut about an acre of guinea grass. And when it was very tall, but the map that is there after you cut that down, even if the guinea grass is green, it's just a dense brown, dry
Yeah,
grass very quickly.
but
Yeah, actually, this, the ranchers are the key to this. I know that HWMO has at times mentioned the fact that we're likely to want to have grazing contracts, part of the, the image that we're going to try to develop.
Yeah, like the goat dozers are a
Yeah.
great resource. for
Right,
things like that.
exactly, so there's, we need to coordinate with, all of your friends.
All the renters, bring them all.
For the past 4 years, I've been trying to get Bishop Corporation to block off 4 roads. When you leave Hāmākua, head to Whitehead, there's 4 roads, dirt roads there. Okay, one of them we got a concrete thing on. Darcy made me do it. The place is full of junk cars. I got about 150 photographs of cars sitting on the side where they take the catalytic converter off, et cetera, et cetera. The captain here caught a guy on a bike with a chainsaw in the back of his backpack, and the bike did not have a spark arrestor on it. Now, I got a lot of fire background. Eucalyptus trees are bombs. You get a crown fire in there, bang, bang, bang. There's so much oil in them. Guys here to stand back and watch it burn. Won't do anything about it. Yes, a ground fire here, long enough stuff there. The eucalyptus bark takes it pretty well. Well, you had people back there on bikes. You had a guy back at an AK firing next 100 feet from the housing area. Okay, you got a guy back there hanging from a tree, I'm an ex-cop. He didn't do it himself. Okay, we got people back there having cockfights. Bishop property. They won't step up. Okay, they brought in 3 concrete things and see them heading toward YMA. The left-hand side used to be a 55-gallon drum there. Now there's 3 concrete things there. They were supposed to be down the road 2 more miles. And they screwed it, basically. Okay, so we haven't discussed, they won't take me to court. Their INA sucks. The place is a junkyard back there. Luckily, Darcy got one thing in there. I worked out with him, got a car that was out of there, out, a few other things. But the place is the bomb, the place to go up. Tires, oil, you name it, it's back in there. It's a junkyard. Same thing in Oahu, same kind of crap going on here. And Bishop won't stand up. You get a crown fire in there, forget it. And my property borders on the back of that shit. And you got guys back here with guns, automatic, full AK automatics. And it's like, scaring the hell out of my neighbors. They come to me and say, "Oh, it's on." What are you gonna do? I tried closing out, I cut down trees. Cut down a number of trees in our property. Bishop won't do anything about it. And then the guys came in, the locals come in and cut the trees and go in anyhow. Cars, truck. Unless Bishop stands up and does something about that. That's a good fire hazard. That's a real good thing. You got the fire boats running on this island anyhow.
Definitely a complex problem, lots of pieces.
Not true.
Yeah, thank you. Let's got about half an hour left here, so let's keep moving on. We have Ponk under your name. I don't know if there's anything.
Well, perhaps that's in reference to the, Provide Nui property down by Pipito. I had actually made a mistake. Could that have been the last meeting, in saying that the, commission was going to make a decision about that property, about all of their properties. They've had presentation of 10 properties for them to consider, county purchase. And, I had thought that the decision was going to be made at the end of May, so I was kind of exhilarated that we had gotten close to that, but in fact, the decision will be made on their meeting on July 9th. I spoke to the realtor in regards to that property, those 2 properties. In fact, the properties that Bobby was one of the references he made was to that estuary that goes very deep into those 2 properties, that the 2 properties bound. And the realtor said that they haven't had any offers, that he's shown the property a number of times. There's been interest, he said, but they have had no offers. He's showing it again tomorrow. But at any rate, I'm just surprised that it's gone this far, and it's still a possibility.
Wait and see.
Yeah, okay.
Planning Department Public Notices, says Tom, but I've also got some things to say, but go ahead if you want.
If you'd like to go ahead and begin.
So I think it was in the packet, the letter from, Gene Campbell, our, corporation counsel, talking about section 16.6 of the county code, which talks about, us receiving briefings from, as requested from the planning department on pending and approved permit applications involving properties located within the planning area. And she does not seem to agree that, we can ask for that to be sent to us all the time. It's my understanding is that,
That's why I'm having
Yeah. Which I'm not, can't interpret it legally, but as requested, I mean, if we request, is there a difference between asking for one specific thing this week and then asking for the same specific thing the next month? Can we want these things every time they come out? Does it make any difference if we ask for it individually? That's sort of what she seems like what she's saying.
Yeah, I read her letter is that her interpretation of chapter 16 is that that it's to be requests about specific applications. And not a request for an ongoing umbrella request for all applications that are going through the planning
So
pipeline, like.
could we, I'd like to jump into this with her and somebody, it doesn't specifically say you can't have an umbrella question that covers something that repeats every month. You have to just ask for each specific time. I mean, I don't know. I know that you don't have the answer to that.
First of all, for some of the people who are here, aren't familiar with what this is in reference to. And that is that, well, I wrote a letter to Miriam and asking her, why, or to explain, why the Department of Planning does not wish to provide a link to all of the applications for rezoning and subdivision and variance to our committee, in that we had asked that the planning department provide that information to us. And then I had asked that a question be sent to the corporation counsel to determine whether they have a legal responsibility to provide that information to us as we've requested. I'm just going to read the letter that I wrote to Miriam. Sorry. I appreciate your inquiry with Gene Campbell regarding the Hāmākua Action Committee request that the digital link to all applications for rezoning and subdivision and variance with the district, within the district of Hāmākua be sent to the planning department. To be sent from the planning department to the chair of the action committee when that application would be submitted. This request, made with the unanimous Hāmākua Action Committee member concurrence, has seemed to be consistent with the Hawaii County Code section 16-6, which states the duties and responsibilities of the CDP Action Committee are 1 through 11, and number 5 is receive briefings as requested from the planning department on pending and approved permit applications involving property located within the planning area and on other issues related to the CDP. Gene Campbell's interpretation suggests that the planning department may not be required to comply with the request from the action committee. This interpretation may deserve further consideration. And then I went on to say, I will ask you at tomorrow's action committee meeting to answer as specifically as possible why the planning department declines to comply with this request. As you have stated previously, the applications which are being requested are on electric file and have a link which could be sent seemingly without much difficulty to the action committee chair upon the departments receiving the application. This seems to argue against it being complicated or difficult to comply with the action committee request. If this is the problem, however, then perhaps we can examine the process in more detail to determine a solution. If there are other reasons for the department's reluctance, then I would ask that you explain each such reason to the best of your or the director's ability. Mahalo, Tom. Sorry, but would you care to explain the department's position on why they would not wish to comply with the request?
Yeah, so I would, so just to clarify, we asked Jean that question, Jean responded, hence your email to me yesterday. I haven't had the moment to get, what the director's response would be formal, but basically, to ad lib it right now, the request on the table is for planning staff that manages, that helps administer the CDP's action committees that the team would regularly review the public notice postings that the other divisions of the planning department do on a routine basis. So this is around, is it 4 postings per month or some number of that, so that the other divisions will do these postings. And then to review these notices and go by TMK number and then sort out the different districts and present to the action committees on a regular basis the applications that are pending with the planning department that correspond to their district. Yes, the applications, because we use now the Epic system, the applications are online. So we could send digital links to action committee members. Planning staff would have to go in there. My team, the 3 of us, would have to go in there, redact those applications and get them ready, and then put them, say in an email and list the links and send them out to the action. It sounds relatively simple. In practice, it is time consuming and tedious. And at the core of it, we just don't have the capacity for it, the 3 of us. To offer this as an ongoing recurring basis to all the action committees. Anything we offer to one action committee, we need to be able to offer it to the others. We're 6 committees with three staff members and no other support staff to run these meetings. So having a staff member, anytime there's a public notice, to go in there and review the TMKs and distribute that, hunt the application in Epic, clean the application up, put it in an email and blast it out. I believe there's a better way to get what you guys are looking for. There's more so my opinion now at this point. I do acknowledge very much the inaccessibility of the public notices, even though they are on our website and they do technically follow code requirements for public notices for all these applications that go through the different divisions of the planning department. Given today's times, they're not as accessible as they could be. And you click on our news, you either have to find it in the newspaper, or you have to go on our website and you'll scroll to the bottom and you'll click it, and then you'll just get a copy of the newspaper. I acknowledge that is not ideal and doesn't really have the community's best interest in mind, in my opinion. My personal opinion at this point now. But having a request like this for our team, I don't feel like it's in the long run, the best solution for what we're looking for, because not only even if it is a practice that we start to incorporate in our processes, because it's not rooted in any code or any other form of structure, because of the different interpretations, right? We can basically, it's kind of like right now, what we're doing is we're fighting. Not fighting, we're debating the interpretation of chapter 16 as is written right now. And using that as the reason why planning needs to do a different process for public notice. Whereas instead, that interpretation could change with administration changes, with staffing changes, and where instead what we could do is we could kind of fix the root of it and look at the code, the pieces of code that require the newspaper postings, and we can work on with Corporation Council on proposing amendments that would be better suited for today's time. So what kind of electronic listserv or something that could be. I believe our planning staff's time would be better spent in that regard instead of going through and hunting the public notices in the newspaper or on our website, 4 to 5 times a week and having the ladies kind of that's the reluctance.
Isn't the district that a particular application is in? Isn't that someplace on maybe like a cover sheet or something for all of the applications? As soon as the application is submitted, somebody sees, oh, this is in Hāmākua district, and they just send it to the chair of the Hāmākua committee.
And so now that request would be for another division staff member to see that and to then forward that, and that's essentially not in the processes of code for those types of applications. And so then even more so, I feel like that's it.
Hey, Miriam, can I sort of interject? I guess, the whole intention behind this is just transparency. And I think it also, if people knew that if they're going in for, permits or special permits or rezones, which, if people know that they're going to be reviewed by the community, then, people are going to, it's a good thing. And I think that, just from a workflow perspective, if it's coming into the ministerial division, which is where the, permits and the requests are coming, it's just a matter of having it sorted and then just sent to a holding place so that you guys can access that. It's not, we don't want to have you spending time looking at the legal notice, because that's way after the fact. You might as well just hit it at where when it's being applied for online. And then when the ministerial, whoever is receiving that application, can just send it to a sorted place by district. And then you can just get it when, prior to our meetings, and then send it to the chairs. I don't see why that's a big thing. I mean, that's what technology is for. It's for sorting. It's like a spreadsheet where you can just sort the category. And so, yeah, I don't really want to complicate it with, like the Corp Council and HC, Hawaii County Code, because that's ridiculous. We just want basic information so that we can assess.
And someone's already looking for that information at this point. It'd be one more step for them. I don't see why you guys even have to address it. But that's just, I don't know the whole process. Someone else is already looking at it.
Right, because it goes to ministerial, most of the stuff, all this stuff, either that or the planning commission division. And they can just sort it, just make it part of their task when they first receive the EPIC applications for whatever those categories are, and then sort it per district and just put it in the holding place, and then you can retrieve it and forward it. That's all, I think that's all we're asking, and I don't think that's a big ask.
At some point, it looks like the county doesn't want us to have this information. I mean, that's just. We should start really getting down to the nuts and bolts. It just looks like. Really, we just want some basic information to do our job that we're volunteering to do. And I'm not addressing this to you, I know, but, you know.
I hear you. Just to clarify, now. The proposed process on the table would be that. Staff that is processing those applications. Would put them into a holding folder by district. And then that folder would be routinely sent to action committee members.
Chair or somebody.
Is that
One person, just one person.
Yeah,
It would be sent to chairs, action committee chairs.
Yep,
sometimes there aren't even any in the district. 1 week, or a month, whatever they do.
Is that on a monthly or how frequent are we?
How often are they sent out?
You know, some
I
of
mean,
them are.
that's the whole thing of being timely, so we can address them. We see something that comes up and we feel it doesn't coincide with our plan.
Now, would it not be easier to have not even just action committee members, but the general public be able to sign up for an email listserv, just like you can for planning commission, just like you can for the action committees or council. And when you sign up, then you get email blasted every time there's a public notice.
Yeah.
Would that be- So isn't that the best, like the most efficient, but that in order. To be completely honest, in order for something to happen, then that goes back to the code amendment situation involving. Drafting and proposing and passing it up, because if not. You're leaving it up to whoever is currently administering the planning department to decide. Whether they.
Can I see the letter from probation?
Yeah.
But the woman before that was here, her name is Rose, and she's left some of the food.
Oh,
Okay.
and did you have any comments or anything that you were?
Good news,
Okay.
I learned from it.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much. So one more thing, I did want to ask where this could be besides Heather's newsletter, where people can see to come to these meetings. I'm just,
We do have,
do they ever make
we're
flyers?
on social media,
Yeah. Do you ever have flyers? Because a lot of local people don't look online.
like, okay.
Yeah, that would be nice to see in the different towns, and I really miss bulletin boards. I've always gone to bulletin boards for finding out what's going on in the town.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. What would we, it sounds like the planning department hasn't, actually fully engaged with the request. I think, or it could be, I don't know. Has the planning department decided that they're not going to do this?
I have gone and talked to different staff to understand the feasibility of the different versions that we have proposed in the past, not today's versions. And was basically told, we are doing what's required by law.
Well,
Which is
But
great.
the question is here, which I would say is different from maybe the question you guys are asking. This is asking, does the code require it? It doesn't. But could they comply with your ask? It doesn't prohibit it, but I do understand the
So why does, could you
challenges.
explain why it doesn't? Comply?
that?
Why doesn't our request comply with it?
No, what I'm
Other
saying
than- other than a
is,
legal-
this is just saying that the code doesn't require the planning department to give you that information. The code doesn't.
They'll give us stuff that we request.
That's not the interpretation that's not the,
That-
the request is, does section 16 require the planning department to monitor all planning department actions for effect on properties located? That's a very different question, I think, than what your ask is.
So,
So the first question here in this email, I think that Jane responded to is different, I think, than what you're asking. I would suggest possibly that you, as a body, maybe clarify your scope of what you're asking for and why and what the value would be in terms of your activities.
Right.
Just so that. So, just to give you an example, we in the council right now are putting forth legislation to require the planning department on a semi-annual basis to let us know of everything that the director has approved of that didn't require council review. We have to put a code ordinance together to do that, and we're only gonna get it twice a year. So,
sounds like you need to change the charter.
yeah, well, I mean, well, we're changing the code, which is sometimes
Is that the same?
the better thing. But, yeah, so I do understand the logistical challenges for sure.
Yeah.
I would suggest, if it's mostly the rezonings, the planning commission updates and the field board meetings updates, you can sign up to get notice. That's what I mostly monitor. Cause those are the big ones. Those are the big rezones, sometimes the SMAs, things like that, that are really the impactful ones. Some of the other ones are not.
What about, how do you get notified about, this, ministerial?
We don't, and that's why we're going through, that's what the council is going through, that we can request it for a certain property just as you can, like you can request it.
But you have to be specific about it. You can't request it
Right.
about all.
I even, yeah, so that's why we're doing our code change to get that report. Like, for example, all the STVR requests, right? You have all your subdivision requests, there's dozens of things that, as Brad knows, the planning department has to approve on or disapprove. We don't see a lot of that as council. We're asking for a biannual.
Sounds like that needs a little sunshine.
Yeah, well, that's what we're trying to do.
Wow.
And that bill is going through right now, so feel free to testify.
Yeah.
It seems so after the fact, though.
It would be after the fact, but the truth of the matter is that we have no jurisdictional oversight, so even if we looked at it. There's not a place for us to, like, with rezonings, there's a place for the council to inject and make decisions around that. With some of these other ministerial decisions, there's not a place for us, we don't have a jurisdiction, so it's not great that it's after the fact, but it's also like, you don't really have anything to do before the fact anyway, so.
Now, like I said, charter, code would be, that'd be the same thing, but other places may call it there.
The charter is like the constitution for the county, and then the code is like the list of laws, so the code.
So you, the
supersedes
charter,
The charter,
the code supersedes the
yeah,
charter.
and charter amendments to the charter have to go out to the voters.
Right.
Whereas code, we just do internally to the.
Codes first.
The code is more easily amended, I guess, so the charter, but it has to, everything in the code has to align with the charter. So the structure of the government works within the charter, the budgeting, priorities, very general.
I take a different position, I think, than Gene Campbell. My feeling is that the duties and the responsibilities of the CDP Action Committee, as per the county code, are receive briefings as requested from the planning department on pending and approved permit applications involving property located within the planning area, and on other issues related to the CDP. And in that, the planning department is assigned the administrative duties of the Community Development Plan Action Committee. It is my impression that they have to, well, at least they should, provide us with what we interpret as being necessary for us to carry out our directive, which is the implementation of the CDP. And if we feel that the implementation of the CDP would be advanced by our having the access to these applications for rezoning, subdivision, etc. Then it should be the case that the planning department should supply those to us. And Jean, makes what I believe is a incorrect interpretation. And I've actually written here, I believe the Corporation Council made a mistake in citing the relevant county code passage 16-65 by adding the word specific before pending or approved permit applications. I suggest that the word specific is not implied by the context. And going on, it's my impression that the framers of this chapter 16 of the county code would be desirous, if as practical as merely emailing a link to the committee chair, that the action committee would review all applications for rezoning and subdivision and variance for consistency with the district community development plan. So my impression would be that this code section does in fact obligate the planning department to supply this information to us.
Okay,
I have some few suggestions that I can provide you outline about how to maybe word the request a little differently that I think will address Jean's concern. She's gonna pick the part of it, but I think there's a way to get what you're saying.
maybe you and I can get together and come up, be very specific about what we want, come up with a list. Make sure it's.
Sure. Love it.
Okay. Probably another.
I think, in other words, you have actually had the necessary discussions with planning department director or your associates that leaves you with the impression that they're not going to supply this to our request.
Another option that we haven't done, that the committee hasn't done, is actually submit a formal request in writing, I believe, as a committee.
I think we actually passed a motion that we would have planning department supply a link to all of the.
I believe that sounds a little bit familiar.
What's that?
I believe that sounds a little bit familiar, but I guess what we could do is we could have, instead of it going through us, it could be planning out or something, but I think it's better to kind of deposit and kind of maybe check in with Heather and other resources to see how best to strategize the next step.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sounds good. Okay, we beat that one, there we go,
Almost.
sir, I'm sorry you're at the very end of the show here, but.
You guys have a lot of problems, don't you? It's kind of.
Well, you're selling, you're an uplifting thing, not a problem, so come talk to
I
us.
gotta stick my nose into things and get it done.
There you go.
I have this thing on the painting job in Hāmākua. That for 20 years, they visit people here, and been trying to get painting done on the curbs, on the handicap section, on the stairs, yada, yada, yada. So the post office had a problem also. I gave these out a couple of years, I don't know. Post office had a problem in Hāmākua. She couldn't get them to come in and do the paint job. And the white and the yellow was going to hell. I had extra road non-skid paint left over. I talked to Kim and wanted to do it. It snowballed from there. I got people saying, can you take my steps? The red on the fire hydrant thing is not there. You know, a lot of stuff is 20 years old. And you can't see it. Okay, so I just $2,000 ago and 29 gallons of paint. I'm still painting. But the county came to me and said, we don't want you painting the public parking lot, white lines on there. I already painted the handicap. Like what I did was I'm the top. So I photographed the thing that's there. Here's what it was, according to the code. So we get a hassle, so what is the code? Well, county says now they want to change the code. They don't have money for it, number one. Okay, they don't have money to do these curbs, do the, whatever it is to do. A lot of this property here is private property along the road. So the private people would like to have things done too. My thing is, if you get stop one person falling on the steps or on whatever, it's worth it. So I put in a lot of hours. And I have kind of interesting to watch it happen. The county here drives by while I'm painting a curb, for example. Hey, Tom, that's great, looks really good, keep it up. The county guys are here. Okay, the cops and I have an agreement, no problem, they want to see things done also. And, it's a snowball into it. Right now, I'm working on the Buddhist temple, because they can't afford to do their lines and everything either. So the county came to me and said, we don't want you painting the white lines, parking lines, in the public parking lot. I already did the handicap thing according to what it was, the code. And I did other things there also. So I said, why don't you want me doing it? Well, it's a liability to us. I'm a liability. It hasn't been done for 20 years. So I got letters from the business community saying, thank you, for what we have in the problem they've had. So I'm willing to stick my nose out, but I don't do in the road traffic. Because Hāmākua, I'm ex-sheriff deputy, Hāmākua is kind of a racetrack through there. No way am I gonna get past those white lines. Okay, in the borders. But a lot of business people here are wanting things done. So I did it, congrats. And like I said before, if one person doesn't fall, get injured, it's worth it. So basically, I'm waiting for the county. The person I talked to said that you put a work order in, you get the parking lot in Hāmākua here, the white line is painted, but they need to be painted. Only trouble is, I found out, I talked to some people, friends of mine, who don't want to talk to you. There's no money for it to do the striping, the yada, yada, yada. So, in front of the school, for example, the crosswalks there, you hardly see the signs. I did the ones up to the white line. I'm not going on that road. No way in hell if I find out. Okay. So the deal is that I'm doing something that the community likes. I sit there working, they bring bottles of water, cold water, they bring banana bread, they bring me a sandwich, I'm going, working with sunny day. And it looks beautiful, and I'm going, talk to the county. And the county goes, well, maybe, where do we find the money for? So, I stopped painting the white lines in the public parking lot. Because the person said they put a work order in. If that happens in 2 months, great. Then after 2 months, I'm gonna take them, negative report. To go with.
Just go out with a flashlight at night and nobody's.
No, not at night, no, that's not good. There's too many druggies walking around. Okay, the parking lot example is there's two power poles there, they have plugs in it. So the local people who are indigent, who are walking around, they've got cell phones, they can afford the cell phones. So they go to these plugs, they plug in the cell phone there, so they keep their cell phones up to date. But they're on drugs, okay, they're living on the street, yet they still have cell phones. Okay, so I've got to know a lot of them. And they say hi to me and we talk back and forth, things like that. The big complaint I had is that people complain that tourists come in and say, can I find a place to go to the toilet? Can I find a place for my son to change his diaper? Okay, there was a porta potty in the parking lot. I went in one day to take a piss, looking there. I walked in, there's women's clothes in there, shoes, clothes. She was living in the porta potty at night. Which is probably, I wrote a rhyme about it. I sent the rhyme in, the next day the porta potty was gone. Okay, so it's kind of, I see your point of view, and it's like, you're in over your head with what has to be done around here. So I kind of stick with those. For example, the Bishop property. For 4 years now, I've been trying to get them blocked off those 4 roads. They go back into that property, because they border our property. It's a friggin' fire hazard. Peter and I have talked about this, the fire chief and I have talked about this. It's like they get a fire on those streets, you put the street, bring out the marshmallows, stand by and watch it go. And there's no fire breaks, there's nothing. And it's full, I can show you 150 pictures of cars, trucks, mattresses, oil cans, tires, whatever you want. Back in that area. And that's what happened over in the other island, okay? They've had 3 fires over there. The last one was the worst one. The first 2, they didn't do squat about it. And they didn't even want to let out the noise about what happened the second fire. They kept it quiet. They didn't want the public to know it. They didn't want to lose their fault. Elko's a good example. Bishop's a good example. My property is Bishop property. And a friend of mine told me, you know, the problem around here is that if you put up gates, the locals cut them down. I cut trees down over the roads. And Bishop said, well, okay, but 2 weeks later, 2 days later, the guys come in and chainsaw, cut holes and go do the bikes. Like I said, a captain caught a guy here on a bike with a chainsaw in the back pocket. But the bike did not have a sparkler restaurant. What the cops go wrong with? There's enough ground cover there, he did a good fire study. And, you know,
Well, it sounds like we need to do a fundraiser and pay you back some money for the paint.
no, that's okay. She asked me to do it through the Lions Club. No, I want a tax write-off. I need a tax write-off. So the $2,000 plus is fine. You know, the labor, no, we can't do labor, of course. But the deal is that people here like it.
Right, cool.
The only thing out, the town said they want to change the color code. That no longer will yellow be used along curbs. Only color be used along curbs is red. And the fire hydrant will be separate. It won't be separate at all. It'll be red. Yellow will be used for loading zone only. There's not many loading zones in Hāmākua. If you drive down here at night, going out of town a little bit, there's no lights. Think about those yellow lines not being there. Red doesn't show at night very well. Okay, we got guys finding the curbs anyhow. The yellow helps. I was doing the post office. I have cones in the road with you come into the post office, the yellow line there. Like big cones sitting there, 4 of them, 2 out here, 2 back here. I'm back here painting. All three are blah, 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 blah. This woman comes in, drives over the cones. You can look at the driveway. There's yellow and yellow paint in the driveway. She could go through it. She drove the cones into her car. She said, I didn't see the cones. I'm an ex-sheriff deputy. He said, David, you should not be driving. And that's part of the problem here, is that they don't give a shit. And a lot of stuff, the private property here, they like the steps done. And that painter stripping the steps yellow, and I have people tell me, that really helps, you know, all the old people here, you know, got lots of eye problems and like that. One person falls, and property owners here have realized that they're at risk, not the county. That's private property. Okay, if somebody falls on that, they're not going to the county, they're going to you. I talked to a guy who's a lawyer. Oh yeah, that's right, private property. Yeah, you can pay them for it. Okay, so it's like, you know. Well, I'm an active person. I feel like fixing things that can be fixed. And I told this guy from the county, I said, you know, I can take you to court. Oh, no. And they won't. They have no grounds. They can stick it someplace.
Best we can say is we're like everybody else, we appreciate what you're doing. Maybe you could try talking to the county.
Yeah, well, they don't have any money for it. I checked into, you know, they don't have money to striking the parking lot and
I think you can give no grief anyway.
it's like, hello, no, whatever.
All right, we're gonna try to wrap this thing up. We got a couple more things to do. Thanks for your info and appreciate it.
We gotta have so much fun.
Agenda for next meeting. Any suggestions?
That she wants to.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm really cognizant of the time, but I wanted to just give you, notice about 4 things. We have Bill 152 is going through. Richard, you'd be interested in this. It's a housing related bill. It allows for pre-approved multi-family plans. So basically it'll be allowed to have sets of plans that can be pulled off the shelf and used to do multi-family unit development. The planning department, permitting department, as long as there's no site plan issues, they can turn those around in 6 days of a request. So it'll really speed up that pipeline as far as housing. The other one is we have a charter amendment going through, and I'd love to know what you guys think about it. So maybe you can email me offline. It would require 3 of the members of the planning commission to have either, so there's different, one would need to have background in Native Hawaiian law or Native Hawaiian traditional practice. One would have to have a background in ecology or regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture, and one of them would have need to have a background in like land management planning. And you know, I like all those ideas. My concern is we have such a challenge getting people on the planning commissions, that we might have even a harder time getting people to fill those commissions. So, you know, one of the things we've talked about is actually giving the council the authority in the charter to put those kind of requirements in the code. And that way we could take them out if it proved to be too onerous. If we're to go as a charter amendment, it would get voted on, then it'd be in the charter. And then you have to do a whole nother charter amendment to take it back out again, that has to get voted on. So we could potentially be constrained to those three limitations. Again, if we had people pounding down the door to be on the planning commissions, I think it would be a great idea. For the Native Hawaiian law and some of the environmental things, I think there are trainings that we could do for people that are on the boards and commissions now. But I'd love to know what you think about it, because I'm kind of on the fence about where to go.
Do you have any other cities or counties that are doing?
City
these
of
type of
County
things?
Honolulu has a sort of requirement language, not
Seems like
specifically the same requirements we have, but they do have language like that.
I mean, it's just traditionally been anybody just.
Well, I think traditionally, the counties have had a hard time filling commission
Yeah,
positions.
we have,
I
and
mean,
part of the reason a lot of things are,
CDP, for Christ's sakes.
yeah, a lot of these things are delayed because it's taking so long to get through, because they can't get forms, they don't have enough members. And, you know, there is a screening, of course, by the council, so like, we can ask people, do you have a background in this, do you have a background in that? As part of the nomination referral process, but, I don't know, I brought it to you guys because I wanted some feedback and.
What do you think about that, Brad?
Well, I think it's a good intention. And you know, like when I was at planning, even some of the job descriptions that I was trying to, I was hoping to get a little bit more, you know, like people with various backgrounds that would be appropriate to their jobs. But yeah, I think you know, sort of challenge to you know, for those volunteer type stuff. I mean, I definitely think it's needed that those perspectives should be represented, but yeah, the challenge is getting, so I don't know, I guess my thing is you can put it in there, but if you can take it out, if you're not getting the response, or at least during the interview, the vetting process, to try and get those types of things, yeah, because it's tough.
Yeah, like I said, one of my colleagues suggested the idea that we use the charter to say that the council has the authority to require these skill sets. And then we can put it in the code, and then that way, if it's not working, then we can amend the code much more easily. That seems like a good, maybe middle ground. Yeah.
And then you mentioned something about Hawaiian law.
Yeah.
What is that about?
There's through Richardson School of Law, Honolulu, there's a whole section that is devoted to Native Hawaiian law, traditional law practices that go back to some of the historical legal mechanisms, particularly around land use and land tenure. And that's one of the big conflicts we have here, of course, in the state, is that the Western version of land management and ownership is very different than the traditional Hawaiian.
How many graduates do they have in there?
It's a fairly decent program, yeah, and they offer, and in fact, I think you guys would be eligible. People that are in elected and nominated government positions on boards and commissions, they do a 2-day workshop I think maybe it's even twice a year. It's really excellent. Like, I learned a ton about what, you know, there's always the gathering rates, you know, people make I can traverse this land because of gathering rights. No, actually, not everybody has gathering rights. There's specific things you can gather. It's really super interesting. So I can keep 10 tabs on.
If the committee is interested with that next round, and that it's either at least every year, if not twice a year, and so next time it's announced, we can push it forward to the members, if you're interested in enrolling. It's a great program.
Yeah, it's very well done. Okay, so that was the second thing. The third thing was, we have the short-term vacation rental bill, bed and breakfast bill, and ADU bill coming back to the council we're gonna schedule a special day here, all three of those. It's gonna be, July 8th, starting at 9 AM. And the reason being is we anticipate again a lot of testimony on it, so, rather than try to mix it with all the other committees, we're gonna just do it on its own special day. The Leeward Planning Committee came back with unanimous favorable on all three. Windward Planning Committee, unfavorable on the first one, favorable on the second one, which is the bed and breakfast repeal. And then unfavorable on the third one, the ADU one, but that was only because they didn't inform. And if they don't inform, it's an automatic unfavorable. So there are a number of amendments that we're proposing, and those will be available for that hearing on the Hawaii County TAR.com website. Yeah, just again, part of the whole housing story is the impact of inventory and prices that the Transient Foundation investment properties have on the market. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was I mentioned the bill about the notifications coming from planning. We also have one around bike tours. This is another one I'm not sure, I don't know if that's on. The proposed legislation would require all bike tour companies using public roadways to register with the county, which I think is a good idea. But then it would allow.
The bike tours operate as a business.
Yeah. These are not individuals or groups of people riding bikes for recreation. These are just people that are doing it as a commercial business on public roadways. The second half of the ordinance would allow council members through a vetting process with DPW, police and others to say that this road is prohibited for bike tours. And so it's kind of one of those things where like, I get a lot of complaints about bike tours on the Kualoa because it's so narrow, there's no shoulders, I can see where that would be dangerous. The flip side of it is, I don't wanna give DPW a free pass about not making roads safe for multimodal transportation, right? I mean, that's a big part of the CDP is multimodal transportation, and so. Yeah, okay, so, you see my
I'm sorry,
concern.
My opinion.
Yeah, so again, I'm just looking for, some of my colleagues are really pushing hard on it, but I really feel like it's a great mess to DPW.
Including money for bike paths, that all work.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts before I go vote next week?
I'm not worried about bike paths, I'm just worried about walking.
I know.
Same boat, yeah. Okay, thank you. Very much. Let's see, okay, so, unless someone has some specific right now for agenda items, you're free to mail new agenda items to myself or Miriam. The next couple of weeks, so anybody have anything right off hand?
I'd like to just, confirm that the issue about the, applications for rezoning and subdivision and variance will be on next month's agenda.
Okay.
And, one other thing that I'd like to have, perhaps on the agenda. I'd like that public testimony be on any subject rather than confined to the agenda items.
Unfortunately, that is per sunshine law. So
Sorry?
that is by sunshine law, testimony has to be on business items on the agenda.
What if we have a business item called new business?
Well, and that's essentially our agenda items for next meeting. That's kind of our version of the loophole. So
Okay,
public comes in just like what's done today. He comes and talks at the end at that item.
can we do that at the beginning?
Proposed items, yeah. So he would propose this item and then you guys, hear him on and then later on decide whether or not that's an item we want to pick up and add to the next agenda. That's kind of our own loophole on the sunshine.
Any thoughts on that? I mean, that seems like that's why it seems like why we're here. Get testimony. Community members.
Yeah, I think so.
But also, just to go back to, the format of the agenda, so we have it, business item number 2 will be, we're assuming that we kind of want to keep this item, we can edit it. This is just our first swing at how we wanted your guys' own, like, priorities that you guys are working on. We can reword it a little bit more specifically. We had some questions from the public when we posted this, so we might go back and make it a little bit more clear. But if you guys have suggestions for your own items or each other's items, please feel free to reach out to us and we kind of work to put that up, and we'll of course discuss it at our next chair meeting. But yeah, we kind of, if you guys want it worded differently or something else is really different, that.
Hey, David, I got a real quick announcement. We just heard, last month, through Mark Nakashima's office that, this last session appropriated, some funds, $2.1 million for, the Hakalau school. And I don't know exactly, we've been trying to get more information from the DOE on that, but the good news is that they did allocate money for the lead mitigation. I don't know why it's gonna take so much to do that, but anyway, we're trying to bird dog that in terms of seeing how it gets spent and what's the process after it gets appropriated, and trying to stay on top of Department of Education so that they can get that mitigation done so that we can get that long-term lease for the facility. So good news after all these years.
Great. Well, we gotta keep us updated on how that goes.
Okay.
Okay. We have a motion for adjournment?
I vote.
Adjourn. Second. Oh. No, let's adjourn.
I'll give you a couple of new chair tips I just learned that. For the minutes, you don't actually have to ask for a motion, you can say, are there any corrections to the minutes? So if no one offers